Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be going over for you guys my top 10 wide receivers in the 2023 NFL draft class. Same thing as all my other rankings videos, 10 to 1. Now I'm going to give you guys some tiers at the end. We're going to go ahead and get right into the video and get rolling with my top 10 receivers. Coming in at number 10, we got Cedric Tillman, wide receiver from Tennessee. You see here I put his 2021 stats in because 2022 he was hurt for most of the year. But like people forget, like Jalin Hyatt's getting a lot of the hype as that Tennessee receiver. Put up huge production in 2022. Like people forget, Cedric Tillman was the receiver one on this team before he ended up going down for Tennessee this year. He was Hendon Hooker's favorite target. He put up 1,081 yards and 12 touchdowns a year before. Like I said, he was kind of hurt this year, but he's another dude who's a really good route runner, really good at the catch point. And he's really good at breaking tackles too after. And like he's kind of one of your well-rounded receivers. I think he's a really big sleeper in this class. Like he is that true ability to be like a number one receiver. And I'm not saying he's like a number one receiver. He's at number 10, but he has the ability and a skill set of a true X outside receiver that, like I said, this is a very slot heavy class. There's a lot of really electric, smaller slot dudes in this class. So to be able to find like a true outside receiver in this class is really rare. And Cedric Tillman's one of the dudes who I think has a skill set and ability to be a true number one receiver in this draft class. Moving on to number 9, we got Michael Wilson from Stanford. He's a dude, you see, only put up 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. That was only 6 games that he actually played. He's a dude where like he went out and balled at the Senior Bowl, showed an elite route running and just great size along with the ability to go up and catch the ball, along with pretty good athleticism. But like the reason he's here at number 9 is because I love the upside of Michael Wilson as a bigger dude with good route running. But we just haven't seen a lot from him. He's been hurt and just hasn't really played a lot at Stanford. So he's kind of like an unknown in this draft class. But the potential with Michael Wilson is outstanding. And that's why ultimately I think he could slide in as a day 2 kind of dude. Just because teams are going to see the upside of this dude. And although we haven't seen it all really put together at Stanford yet, that upside is what teams are going to fall in love with. And what we saw at the Senior Bowl, where he was a step above a lot of dudes at the Senior Bowl, which was really good for him because, like I said, we haven't seen a lot. So for him to go out against other NFL talent at the Senior Bowl and go ahead and look like he was on another level above the rest of them was really important for him. And I think it's going to be a huge separator when people talk about where he ends up getting drafted and why I have him here at my number 9 receiver with that just high upside receiver in Michael Wilson. Moving on to number 8, we got kind of the dude I was talking about. We have a lot of in the draft class. We got Tank Dell from Houston. Put up 100 receptions for almost 1,400 yards and 17 touchdowns. Great production at Houston in his last season there. Another dude that came out to the Senior Bowl, balled out on day 1 and kind of said, see you guys later. That's all I needed to do. And that's all he needed to do because he was one of the most electric, fastest dudes of the Senior Bowl and showed that he was a fast college player, but even against other NFL competition, he's still a step above them and just that explosiveness, along with being able to go up and catch the ball. You know, he's a smaller dude, but he's able to go up and catch the ball pretty well too. But his one big concern is his size. I mean, he's a smaller dude. You can even see in the picture. He's not got a lot of beef on him either. So he's going to be kind of refined to probably a slot role in the NFL. And the reason why he's 8 and not higher, like I said, we got a lot of these dudes in this draft. We got smaller dudes with just elite athletic ability. And he definitely fits that mold as a dude who, like, very athletic, but just his size is going to be the reason why he's not a highly drafted dude and why ultimately he probably still goes day 2. But the size is going to be the one thing that everyone talks about with Tank Dell when you're deciding whether or not you want to take him or not, because it's like kind of one role in an offense. If you have that role filled, you don't really need him, but he'll fill that kind of slot gadget kind of player role pretty well in the NFL just with his elite athleticism, like I've said. Moving on to number 7, we got A.T. Perry from Wake Forest. Put up 81 receptions for almost 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns at Wake Forest. If you want a more in-depth breakdown on A.T. Perry, go check out my offensive gems video that I put out a couple weeks ago. He was on there as one of my gems. But he's a dude that I believe has a true ability and size and skill set to be a number 1 receiver, outside X receiver in the league. He's still got more, like, he ran a very limited route share at Wake Forest, but on those route sheets he ran, if you look at some of the graphics people put on Twitter of like success per route run, he was very successful on routes run. He just didn't run a lot. So he's another dude where kind of like that Justin Jefferson conversation where it's like, hey, he ran a very simple route tree at Wake Forest, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's all he can do. I personally think he can run the whole route tree. He ran it with success when he did run other routes, but it was mostly a vertical route tree at Wake Forest, and that's kind of where some of the concerns come with him. But personally, I think it was more of a he excelled, and that's what they did in that offense. Not that he necessarily can't. I think he can do that. It's more of just what he was asked to do at Wake Forest was out. Kind of like I said with Justin Jefferson, where like people thought he might just be a slot receiver because that's really all he did at LSU, where that wasn't the case. He played slot receiver just because that's where he would get more production and ball out, more. Whereas he could be an outside receiver. And we've seen in the NFL, it's more just whether it's just trying to decide whether he can or can't do it based off not doing it. And I think he's a dude where he can do it. He just didn't do it at Wake Forest. And the reason I'm really high on A.T. Perry as like a second round pick, as a dude with that high upside and just a dude I'm really loving in this draft class as a day 2 receiver. Coming in at number 6, we got Josh Downs from North Carolina. Put up almost 100 yards, 1,000 receptions, 11 touchdowns with Drake May and that North Carolina offense in 2022. He's a dude that he missed 2021 with Sam Howell that year because of an injury, but he came back, had a good season here this past season. But he's another kind of your slot electric receiver another guy who kind of like I mentioned with Tank Dell, he's smaller, but he's very good speed. He's a really good route runner. He's really good at like crisp routes and being able to get in and out of his breaks. Really good at that. And also just he's really good at going up and getting the ball. Like, he's a smaller dude, but his ability at contested catches is very good. It kind of reminds me of Tyler Lockett a little, in where I think he could play on the outside in the NFL. I think he definitely is better as a slot guy. But like Tyler Lockett's another dude where he's smaller, but Tyler Lockett kind of plays like a bigger receiver in just his route running, his ability to go up and get the ball. I see a lot of that in Josh Downs. And I think Josh Downs is more of an electric athlete than Tyler Lockett. But I just kind of see that similarity of where like he's not afraid to go up and get the ball, and he definitely can go up and get the ball and just be able to play across the middle as a really good slot receiver. I think that's where Josh Downs falls. The dude who I'm thinking probably looking at early day 2, and I wouldn't be surprised if he sneaks into day 1. Some of those teams like KC, Philly, and Buffalo at the end of round 1, I wouldn't be surprised if one of those dudes pulled the trigger on Josh Downs, just because like he could be a difference in a playmaker where before the catch, after the catch, just an elite electric guy, fun to watch. And like I said, he'll go up and get the ball even though he's smaller. So I'm not really worried about his size as much as like a Tank Dell. I'm more worried about his size. I'm not as worried with Josh Downs as his size and why he's up here at 6 and above some of the other dudes. Moving on to number 5, I got Jalin Hyatt, receiver from Tennessee. Had elite production with 67 receptions for 1,267 yards. I mean, almost 20 yards a catch. I mean, that's kind of insane. 15 touchdowns along for Tennessee. Him and Hendon Hooker were an elite duo. You saw turn on that Alabama game if you want to see what Jalin Hyatt can offer. I mean, this dude is a speedster. He's got blazing speed, probably the best deep threat and just pure speedster in this entire draft class. He's a very controversial, he's a very like pineapple on pizza kind of dude. You either love Jalin Hyatt and think he could sneak in the first round, or you're not very high and think he's like a round 3 kind of pick. So like personally, I think I just value that speed and offenses nowadays, and where like Jalin Hyatt, I think he can round out his route running a lot more. I think he's not an elite route runner right now, but I think he can work on that and become a better. But like, I think when you have a dude with Jalin Hyatt's speed, you have kind of a baseline of where like I think he can have production even if he doesn't get better at route running and some of the more nuances of playing receiver. His elite speed is just going to set a baseline for him where he's always going to be able to find a role in the NFL. And like you look at like Quez Watkins, a dude who can have some decent production for the Philadelphia Eagles just because of his pure speed. I think Jalin Hyatt's a similar way. Like he has that baseline where with his speed, he's going to be able to get production and catch some deep balls no matter what else he puts onto his game. But like if he can also put like some better route running and contested catchability into his game, I mean, he just becomes even better. But I think the reason I have him at 5, and I think he's really close with Josh Downs and kind of a pick your poison and what you want for your offense between those two dudes. I'm at 5 just because of the upside of his speed at the receiver position. Like, it's just something that like you can't train speed. Like his speed is not like you can't just get as fast as him. It's hard to get, and that just like some of the other like he can work on route running. Whereas like some of the other dudes like A.T. Perry, he's not going to be Jalin Hyatt fast. Whereas Jalin Hyatt could work on his route running and become a better route runner. So I'm kind of seeing that potential in Jalin Hyatt, and just along with that baseline is the reason I have him at 5. And I might be a little higher than other people on him, but I see him as an early second round kind of pick that can just really change the game, especially saw with like Christian Watson. You get some of the dudes with height and speed, and they're going to go a lot earlier than people think. And I think teams are going to really like what Hyatt can bring as a speedster and just a deep threat in an offense. Coming in at number 4, I got Jordan Addison from USC. Put up 875 yards and 8 touchdowns on 60 receptions, pairing with Caleb Williams. Former Biletnikoff winner with Kenny Pickett at Pittsburgh the year before too. He's had some great production across his college career. I mean, that Biletnikoff winner, that was a tough year. A lot of people say maybe, Jameson Williams or someone should have won that, but like he did win it, so you can't argue with that. He does, like I said, great production. He's a really good deep threat. He doesn't have like blazing speed, but the reason I have him here at 4 is like he's a really good receiver, like really good route running. He understands defenses, how to get open. But his size is very concerning for me. He's a smaller, thinner dude. He's not like, I think like if you I think it kind of has to be a slot receiver in the NFL just because he does not deal well with press at all, especially being small. Whereas like you kind of like people have talked about like Devontae Smith with him, where like Devontae Smith was a very skinny dude along with Jordan Addison, but like Devontae Smith was one faster than Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison is not the like fastest dude. He's fast, but he's not like an elite fast. And then Devontae Smith he's able to get away with size because he's very quick and he's good at getting off a press. You know, like even though dudes want to press Devontae Smith, he's not like the greatest against press, but like, he's good at being able to like, you know, work with his hands and his feet and not get pressed and kind of avoid contact. Whereas Jordan Addison is not as good at the nuanced kind of route running and stuff as Devontae Smith was. And the reason why I have 3 other dudes above him is just kind of like, there's some worries about that, but I definitely think he could be a productive receiver. It's just really his size is one of the things that really worries me and puts him kind of here at 4 and kind of a late first round pick compared to some of the dudes I'm about to mention above him. Rounding off, coming into the top 3, we got Zay Flowers coming in at number 3 from Boston College. Put up almost 80 receptions for 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns in his final season at Boston College. Now, I do want to preface this. These top 3 receivers can go any direction for me. Like I have very similar like grades on all 3 of these top dudes. So like they're kind of more pick your poison. The other 2 above him I just think could be more well-rounded receivers. But like Zay Flowers is the electric athlete in this class. I mean, watch some of like his routes and stuff. He's just got elite speed in every direction. I mean, like a lot of people, like I see the Jalen Waddle comps because like some people like Jalen Hyatt are like vertical north-south kind of fast. Like he, you know, in a straight line he's fast. But like Zay Flowers has it like his ability to go sideways, forwards, backwards, make jukes, spins. Everything he does is just fast and electric. And I love the Jalen Waddle comps and just that kind of how he moves. I wouldn't say like as a player he's like Jalen Waddle, but just how he moves is kind of like Jalen Waddle, where he just has that electric speed in whatever direction he's moving, and his route running can just be so electric, and he's going to get a lot of space running routes, especially you get this dude moving out of the slot and he gets space against some of these slot corners and safeties that are trying to cover him. I mean, he's going to get a lot of space, get open, he could be a deep threat, and I love him as kind of like a gadget dude. You get him the ball underneath and he's going to make dudes miss. I mean, he has a lot of highlight plays where like just making dudes miss in open space. You know, he went to Boston College, which isn't like a very predominant passing offense, so his stats aren't going to be as inflated, but like he went out and balled. He did go to the Shrine Bowl instead of the Senior Bowl, and I mean, he torched everyone. He was on a different level at the Shrine Bowl, but like just an electric athlete that ultimately there's rumors he could be the number 1 receiver off the board. And I think the Patriots are one of my favorite spots for him. I think that's like his ceiling. His ceiling is the Patriots. I mean, because the Patriots were able to coach him at the Shrine Bowl. They loved what they saw there. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes as early as 14 or 15 to the Patriots, because I think they really like this dude and he's an elite receiver that can really, with game-changing just ability to create some big plays in the NFL. Coming in at number 2, like I said, he's kind of like all a big group at number 1 in the top 3. We got Quentin Johnston from TCU, put up almost 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's your height, weight, speed. You talk about height, weight, speed at corner. He's your height, weight, speed at receiver. I mean, he can go up and get it. His vertical jump is insane. I mean, I believe he had like a 6'10" high jump in high school. So like this dude, a very bouncy dude. You can see he goes up and gets the ball, like contested catches and speed. This dude has like a vertical player is elite. I have a little bit worries about some of his underneath route running. But if you're talking about a dude that can stretch the defenses and go up and win a jump ball, I mean, Quentin Johnston's up there, and as his ability to be like I was talking about, there's a lot of like smaller slot kind of guys that we've talked about in this video, and it's very full of those. And there's not a lot of true like outside X receivers. Quentin Johnston, the reason I have him here at 2 is because he has that true ability to be a number 1 X elite receiver who can play and win on the outside against the biggest and best corners in the NFL, just because his size and speed combination is going to win a lot for him. And I think we still haven't even really tapped into his potential yet. You know, he kind of had a couple quiet years, had kind of a breakout year this last year at TCU, but I still think there's even more room to grow. And after the catch, this dude's elite too. Like you watch some of his plays, his ability to catch a quick slant, make 2 or 3 dudes miss and house it is just a different ability. He's very quick in and out of his breaks. So he's a tall and fast dude, but he's not just like a straight line speed guy, which I think a lot of people have that misconception about Quentin Johnston. Like he's just a straight line dude. He is not just a straight line dude. I mean, this dude can juke and he could come quick and out of his breaks very well compared to like dudes his size. So a dude that, like I said, just stands above some of these top guys, and just his size really sets a bar. Like you're talking about like recently we got JSN, Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, Jordan Addison, all really pretty small dudes. He kind of stands out as one of these bigger dudes in this class that can really be an outside receiver. Coming in at number one, I kind of just teased it a little talking when I was talking about Quentin Johnston. We got Jackson Smith and Jigba. JSN from Ohio State put up 95 receptions for 1,600 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2021 with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave in that offense. I mean, this dude had elite production as a true sophomore. You have Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave both saying that this dude's the best receiver and best athlete out of all of them. I mean, we didn't really get to see him in 2022. He got injured in their first game against Notre Dame and never really played again. But like, I think it's the only reason people are kind of not talking about him is like he's not the biggest dude or like the greatest like straight line speed. But I mean, teams were clocking him in the 4.4s at his pro day, along with having like elite, like when I say elite 3-cone and shuttle. His ability to get in and out of breaks and change direction is probably the best in this class. Like 3-cone is very important receivers when you're talking about getting in and out of breaks and just running routes. 3-cone is very important, and I think he had one of the best 3-cones we've seen at the combine. So his ability to change direction, just understanding a defense is really good. Even if he is a slot receiver in the NFL, which I think that's definitely going to be his role, slot receiver is so important in the NFL. Like people are talking about like slot receiver like it's a negative. Like Cooper Kupp's a slot receiver, and he's one of the best. He's like widely regarded as a top 3 receiver in the NFL, along with having some of the greatest production. I mean, like that Triple Crown. Like I don't see why people are like downing. I think it's almost a positive. Like I get it's rarer, there's more slot receivers that you find, but I also think slot receivers as important as it's ever been, and it might be even more important than an outside receiver just with how we're playing the NFL game now. And he can just be game changer. Like I think JSN could have the ability to do not necessarily what Cooper Kupp did, because like that Triple Crown is like that's like a historic season, but like have that kind of production. I could see him being like a true number 1 receiver as a slot guy in the NFL and having 100 plus receptions and 1,000 plus yards year after year just because of his elite route running, ability to get in and out of breaks, and understanding of defenses. And along with, I think he had better speed than some people thought at his pro day. I think it's kind of just, we haven't seen him for a little while, and I think that's why people are kind of talking about some of the hot, it's like the hot new young toys that you got with like the Zay Flowers and Quentin Johnston. They broke out recently. They're kind of like the hot commodities and stuff, and you kind of get that recency bias. But like, go back and turn on 2021 film JSN, and he's definitely the best receiver in this class. I'm not going to argue that. I think he could ultimately be a top 10 pick. I don't know how teams view him in the NFL, but for me, he's definitely the number 1 receiver and a dude that I'm willing to take, because I think personally, I've said it before, I think he's better than any receiver in last year's draft class, and that was a pretty good receiver class. So he's just another level, and why he's my number 1 receiver in this draft class. So as you can see here, I got my top 10 kind of tiered out. We got our top tier of our top 4 receivers of JSN, Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, and Jordan Addison. I think those are your first round lock kind of dudes. I believe all 4 of those dudes end up going in the first round. Can be a kind of pick your poison for a lot of dudes, especially like those top 3 I said. I personally see JSN above, but like he is that slot role. And, if a team already has a good slot receiver, I could see them valuing maybe Quentin Johnston more. But like I said, kind of pick your poison. Those Jordan Addison, I do think slides in the first round, even with his size concerns. Then we got that next tier of second round receivers who have either an elite trait or just pretty well rounded in Hyatt, Downs, Perry, and Dell. And then we got our last tier of Michael Wilson and Cedric Tillman. Some of your more third, fourth, fifth round kind of dudes that, there's some questions about them, whether it's injury, just not playing, or one of their traits. Another dude who I really wanted to mention as my honorable mention is Charlie Jones from Purdue, who was originally at 10, but then I started watching more Cedric Tillman and had to throw Cedric Tillman in above him. But Charlie Jones is another dude I love. He's great contested catch kind of dude. Go check out Charlie Jones to see some more about them. But that's kind of how I would tier out my top 10 receivers in the 2023 draft. Anyways, that's going to do it for our 2023 wide receiver rankings video. Let me know what you guys thought of the receiver rankings. I know a lot of people aren't as high on JSN as I am, but I love myself some JSN. I just think what he brings is different. Even if it's as a slot receiver, I think that's just still so important in the NFL. But we're gonna keep the content coming out. I got cornerback and quarterback rankings coming out next week, along with just keep coming out with all these mock drafts. Make you check out. I did a couple other rankings. I did running back rankings and a couple reacted to a way too early 2023 mock draft that PFF put out like a year ago, and then also did a first and second round mock draft you can see on my channel, so go check those out if you want to hear some more about some of the players and where I think they ultimately fall. But that's going to be it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe for more content, because I'm going to keep it rolling until the draft comes, and even after the draft we'll see what we start coming out with more content.